Hey, 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 we're back. We're black. We are also around. Ambition.
How you doing, friend?
Good. How was your extended weekend?
Well, it seemed like after we finished recording last week, the world exploded. And it knocked me on my ass. And I know
Okay.
that you know a thing or two about grief,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And that shooting in Uvalde, Texas, it
Yeah.
happened. I mean, I came off the high of the show and then had something else to do and then went to pick up my son from daycare. And my husband decided to
Mm-hmm.
just text me the news. And I mean, I had to pull over. Like it
Yeah.
was to my
Devastating.
knees,
Yeah.
devastating. And I think
Yeah.
my biggest fear now is that people are going to go back to business as usual. Um, I don't know what the alternative. I don't want to go back to business as usual. And like, I did something the next day because I just woke up and I was just like, it was so heavy. And I
Yeah.
just put up my vacation responder saying that I was going to be taking some time off to mourn the losses of life. It was just after Buffalo,
I
like
know.
a
And
week
these
and a half after
babies,
Buffalo.
I just
19 babies.
and their teacher.
And they're two teachers.
Yes. When I saw that, because I used to be a teacher, I don't even know the level of terror those kids must have gone through and their teachers. I mean, I can't imagine because when you're teaching, literally, especially little ones, this weird thing comes over you where you're like, well, this is my child now. Like as soon as I enter into the classroom, when you drop your baby off, that's my baby too. Because sis, we could fight. Like I love your child like just as much as you do when they're here with me. So I can't imagine how they must have felt, the teachers that were in there, how terrified they were for themselves, but especially because that's what happens. Like it could be me going to the park with the kids and just like a strange person standing around. I mean, the mama bear that used to come out of me, I'm like, why are you at this park? Well, I just know I need you to walk away. I can't come to the park not when the kids are here because you have just this weird look. And if it takes us to fight, sir, I'll send the kids back and we could tussle. Like literally, that's how I was. Like, but honestly, I found that most teachers of little ones were like that too. So I can't even imagine. I saw one father. I don't even know why I watched it because I was hysterical after of how he was just like, I just want my baby back. Like what? I just want my baby back.
What do you want
I
me to
don't even.
say? There's
Yeah,
nothing to be said. I want my,
yeah.
and she shouldn't. I think I know what interview you're talking about too.
Mm-hmm. It was heartbreaking.
As much as, we talk about this too. Maybe you have something to say. I struggle with the whole, I know self care is important and I know
Mm-hmm.
that we have to kind of protect ourselves from the news. But I didn't want to protect myself. I wanted to read the names. I wanted to read the minute by minute account of the shooting. I wanted to understand how it happened, as painful as it was, and continues to be. I don't know that I'm not ready to stop. I just don't want to not care. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
not talk about it. It's heavy and
Yeah.
devastating and terrifying. I what who else is going to save the babies? Like the people that we've elected into power,
I
they're not
mean,
doing they ain't doing a damn thing. And I'm like, as a mom, you don't have to be a mom, forget that. A human being,
yeah.
you know, where what I'm just like, what can we do to save the children? The
Yeah.
babies who are
There's
having to
people in
learn.
in general because it's I saw someone said, which is so true. It's like nothing says that we need to ban these like automatic assault rifles than police being afraid to go in because they have an automatic assault rifle. I mean,
Yeah.
what does it take? One thing I will say that gave me a little like that shaved a little bit off of my feeling disheartened is to see all those people protesting in Texas.
Mm.
And I think I'm
At the
hoping that,
NRA rally.
yes, that we've turned a
Yeah.
corner, that people are like, oh, okay, governor, I'm hoping that when election time comes, I'm
Mm.
hoping that, that people are just like, enough already. Because what does it take? Because at some point, everyone's going to know somebody who has been a victim of school shooting or something tragic like that, whether it's school, um, like in Buffalo, the supermarket, a church, at some point, everyone's going to say, my mom, my sister, my cousin, my son. Like, what's happening here? I was reading the statistic that I guess at one point when President Clinton was president, he had banned the automatic assault rifles, and gun violence went down like 43%. And then it was lifted and gun violence increased by like 200, I think, and
It
43%.
expired, right? Like, I'm like, why would that expire? Like, we're going to get over our issues?
Yes. And there was a direct correlation. Like, it's up like over 200% as a result. So it's like bans do work. Like this whole, people are like, bans don't work. It's like, let's look at the countries where they've enacted those and see how they have almost eliminated gun violence. So it's like, you have to ask yourself, follow the money, really. Why won't politicians do anything? Because they're on the payroll of those who would benefit them to be able to sell these type of assault rifles. Did you see was it Good Morning America? That young boy, he maybe was like 13 years old. They sent him into a 7-Eleven to buy alcohol.
Yes.
They were like, baby, you can't buy alcohol. They sent him to someplace else to buy cigarettes. Baby, you can't buy cigarettes. All these other places. Then they sent him to like a gun show to buy a gun. And he walked out with a gun. No cold medicine he can't buy. Alcohol, cigarettes he can't buy. But a 13-year-old can buy a gun.
Can't
Still.
vote.
Yep.
But here's an assault rifle. Mm-hmm. Thank you for mentioning the protests. It's the only way. Yeah. I want to get up right now and protest. Like I've done a good job compartmentalizing, I think, and this past weekend, just becoming obsessed with seeing my son smile. Just obsessed. I would do anything to make him smile. And you know what? I broke my body for that child this weekend. Like I've not slept as hard as I slept. I went to bed at 8:15 last night and I slept until 7:56 this morning. Like that is how hard I went. And I think I was just pouring all the energy into just like, what can I do? But there's more than that. You mentioned the protesting and about the power of these elected officials and who do we want in power? And the fact of the matter is that, like, do not get it twisted. There's actually legislation already that's been passed in the House and has been stymied in the Senate because they need at least 60 votes to pass the filibuster, which is what, Republicans and Democrats have used it too. If you don't get more than 60 votes, then you can welcome this filibuster, which means no one ever stops talking and nothing ever gets passed, right? They need 60 votes. They don't got them. They don't have them because they don't have it. And even there's probably a couple Democrats who are not, voting for this, but these are people we've elected into power. Mm-hmm. The midterms are coming up. How are we going to change this? Like, I feel so useless being here in a progressive state. I'm just like, should I move back to Georgia? What should I do? But if you're in a state where you have senators who are opposed, and hell, we'll put the link in the show notes so you can see exactly who's opposed this law. I want you to call them. And it has to be you. I actually listened to, was I listening to? It was like a podcast, and it was someone who works on Capitol Hill, and she was going into detail about the most impactful way to get elected officials' attention. And she's like, if you're not in their constituency, like you live where they represent, your calls are not going to matter as much. So I can't call. Yes. Tiffany can't call. If you live in Texas or Georgia or Kansas or wherever these places are, you have to call. We have to work. We have to save the babies. Like we have to. And I'm going to say babies because everyone's all about pro-life and banning abortion and all that bull. We don't give a shit about children in this country. Yeah, like that's the way I feel.
It's just
we don't care about children.
Yeah.
We don't give it. How do we not care about children?
You're worried about.
Who are going to grow up to be taxpayers and business owners, and like, how do we not see what happens to a child and who they
literally they've passed laws.
How do we not see that?
At conception, you can't. I'm like, that's not literally.
We can't feed them. We can't feed them.
Yes, and so, but now that when kids become actual kids, then it's like, hands off. It's just that's the only way people are gonna learn, and it actually does work. If you think to yourself, that doesn't work, that's not true. Like my Assemblywoman Angela V. McKnight and I got together, and then it took 2 or 3 years, but we got the law passed in the state of New Jersey, making financial education mandatory for middle school students. Then I called Angela and I was like, these people came to my house and under and praised the house. And it's been what, like 2 years now. And I unfortunately I can't be there because I have a speaking engagement. But on Thursday, they asked me to come testify before the Senate of New Jersey to testify to say this is what happened to me. So now there's a law, or not a law, but certainly I don't know if it's a bill yet, but it is I think it's called a bill, whatever a pre-law is, to say, hey, here's how one that's wrong for appraisals to be based upon race and gender and other information that has nothing to do with the value of your home. And here's what's going to happen for appraisers who do that. So that's happening. It takes some time, but to stand up and say, no, I'm going to reach out to my council person, my assembly person, my whatever. I mean, that's actually
Locally.
happening.
Local.
Yes,
Thank
locally.
you.
Yep.
Locally.
And I remember distinctly, to your point, Mandy, she was like, can you come and speak? Because hearing from a constituent is powerful. And if not, write a letter. And I remember when we were getting the financial education law passed, she was like, can you send an email to all of your New Jersey folks in this area to say, make a phone call? I literally gave them a link. I said, here's a link, click this, copy and paste this message if you don't know what to write. And so that's what we did to let lawmakers know, like, hey, there are people who could vote you in or out who care about this law, make it happen. So I just say all that to say that I know sometimes it's hard because it's just like, just vote. That doesn't seem like enough. But I will say that being active in that way, it does make change happen.
Yeah, and at the local level too. I got really involved in my school district's Board of Education election, which was just like, what was it, a couple of weeks ago now. And the pro gun, anti-vax contingency, they're out there trying to get seats
Yes.
on school boards. Okay. And thank goodness this particular election, and I don't even have a kid in the school system yet, but I'm just like, he's going to be there. And if he's not there, I know kids who are I know kids in my neighborhood who are going to be in the school system. So even at that level, voting,
Yes.
helping to pass out flyers, being aware of what's happening at your really local level, like going to your town hall meetings or getting on the listserv and, emailing your local elected officials. Believe me, they'll respond to those emails.
Yep.
At the local level, they will. It
They
really
will.
matters. So, I just want I want to create at least a few minutes here to can we create some actionable items, for action steps that you can take right now so we can all just feel a little bit less. And I think that's it, figuring out who's opposed this particular bill that originated in the House, figuring out if you have any senators in your state, and there's quite a few who have opposed it, and how you can get in contact with them and tell them that they are not doing you a service, that as a constituent you care. We'll put those links in the show notes. That's one huge thing. And then also
Yes.
at your local level, who's on your Board of Education? I have a friend, and she has created a petition. Sadly enough, I mean, obviously gun reform is so important, but the reality is that, like Tiffany said, it can take a long time to see any huge changes. We've already seen it. So in the meantime, this mom is petitioning her local school Board of Education to better protect the children at schools. So even as we're thinking about big picture gun reform, there's still kids going to bat wars every day. It feels like, how are we protecting them? They have a school police district, no one there to protect them. So what can we do to create safer schools?
Yeah.
Just done training.
They had 2 weeks prior about this is what to do.
Yeah.
Should this happen?
Yeah. So looking into your local school district and what have they done to create a safer environment for schools? If we're going to let these AR, 15s stay on the streets and let 13-year-olds buy up guns at gun shows and all of that, what are we going to do to make schools safer? And if you're not asking those questions as a concerned citizen, I think that that's one of the simple things that we can do to make schools a little bit safer. And hug your babies and hug the babies that aren't your babies, and just appreciate these lives, these fragile children. I can't get over it. The only thing that gave me comfort when I was, in hysterics on Tuesday was I called my neighbor, one of my really good friends, who's become just, I don't know, just an incredible support system for me. And she has a 5-year-old who is in schools here. And I called her just to say, hey, I'm on the side of the road. I'm losing my, you know,
Yeah.
I just want to talk to you. And in the background, her 5-year-old son is in the background. And he's like, and she's explaining to him, Miss Mandy has some big feelings right now. Remember,
Mm,
we've talked about, he knows gun violence. And she's like, remember, we've
mm.
talked about this. 5 years old.
5.
And I hear him in the background, and he's like, "Oh, Miss Mandy, it's going to be okay. I know what to do if that happens.
Oh my
I'm going to run
gosh.
really fast." And
Oh
that
my
was it
gosh. You're gonna make
sobered
me
me right
cry.
up.
You
5
make
years
me
old,
cry.
this kid. And I'm like, "Oh, he's why I can't be losing it right now.
Yeah.
Like these tears ain't helping anybody.
Yeah.
He's he's who I envision. Of course, my own son too, but we need to care about kids that aren't our
All the
own.
kids. Yeah.
Like we need to care about every child,
Yeah.
black, white, brown, and wherever they live. And until we do, it's not going to be safe for them, and that's just a heartbreaking, reality.
Yeah.
Deep
I
breath and
know.
exhale.
Yeah. Literally, that's what Dr. Green would say
Yeah.
right now. Whenever I'm like, she's like, you know what? Why don't you take a couple deep breaths because
Mm.
it's a heavy load.
Try to
Yeah.
make a baby smile. Every baby I've seen, I'm just like, I act like a crazy person now. Like I've become that person who holds babies. And I'm like, how can I make your day brighter, baby? Because you're here and you didn't want to be. You didn't ask for this, but you're here in this country. So
I, I know. I know.
and back to business as usual this week ish. Trying not
Yeah.
to think too deeply about it, but I mean, still thinking about it and still I actually had a moment where I was supposed to do I had my first big brand partnership last week, scheduled to
Okay.
create my very excited 5-figure deal. You'd be so proud. And I
Yeah.
think I told you that was like
You
the day I
did.
was negotiating, I told you.
Mm-hmm.
And my first post was supposed to go up Tuesday. And
Yeah,
shout
of
out to this
course.
brand too, because I didn't post anything. I only posted anything that had to do with the shooting. And I did get the message the next day, like, oh, we noticed that this post hadn't gone up. And I was like, listen, no one would have cared. It wouldn't have had any impact. I would have felt insane for acknowledging, this is about business, and it just nothing really mattered. And they were super considerate of that decision. But yeah, it for me, I felt good to be a business owner at that point, be my own boss and be able to say, you know what? No, this doesn't feel right. I'm not doing it.
No, and honestly, that's one of the upsides of being a business owner, and because you have the agency that say so. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that go along with being a business owner, but that is one of the upsides is that you have the agency to say no. Like I don't think it's a
Yeah.
good idea, but also it's great because you obviously chose well with the brand partner because you found a partner that wasn't going to put profit over people in that moment. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. And shout out
Ooh,
to anyone
child.
going to work. Just as much as you can. You know your work culture better than we
Hmm.
do, obviously. But I feel like if you're going to work and this is heavy on yourself, if you can clear your schedule, clear your schedule. If you can
Hmm.
tell people why you're upset, tell them why you're upset. You
Hmm.
know, so that people understand it. It's not business as usual if we're not ready for it to be,
Hmm.
and that is another way that we can create some change and make things a little bit better.
Yeah.
Um,
We had HR like we always have like outreach. So our HR person's like if you need to talk to someone, you need coaching, counseling. So we always make that available. And sometimes we just talk about it. Like, you have your
mm.
normal chat with whomever you're chatting with that day. It comes up and we speak about it because it's important to be said.
Hey, BA fam, support for our show, Brown Ambition, comes from our friends at Avast. Avast empowers you with digital safety and privacy no matter who you are, where you are, or how you connect. Avast prevents over 1.5 billion attacks every month. Avast's new all-in-one solution, Avast One, helps you take control of your safety and privacy online through a range of features. Avast One data breach monitoring lets you find out if your online accounts have been compromised and whether your passwords need to be changed. Ransomware protection secures your personal photos, documents, and other files from being modified, deleted, or encrypted by ransomware attacks. Personally, I love the way Avast's firewall protection keeps my personal information secure and stops attacks trying to get on my computer. I ain't got time for that, y'all. With Avast One, you can confidently take control of your online world without worrying about viruses, phishing attacks, ransomware, hacking attempts, and other cyber crimes. Learn more about Avast One at avast.com.
Oh, so for brown boost, brown break, which one are you gonna take? Brown boost, brown break, which one are you gonna take? Well, I'm obviously gonna boost because I'm like, child, we got enough breakage
I
for
got you.
me.
I got a boost for y'all. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, so what's
Do you
your
want to go
boost?
first? You want me to go?
I can go first. Mine's just a little silly. I'm gonna
Okay.
and very like what we need these days.
Mm-hmm.
My butterfly extravaganza of a garden, my mastermind,
Ooh,
it's working. I feel like a
yes.
butterfly mastermind. You guys missed it. I don't know that around this time or late summer last year, I became obsessed. I had a caterpillar in my parsley bush that I had or parsley thing that I had planted. I don't even eat parsley like that, so I didn't mind I had a caterpillar because it was munching on the parsley, and I found out everything I could about this particular caterpillar. It was a swallowtail butterfly caterpillar,
Mm.
and I watched it become a chrysalis, and I missed it when it
Mm.
emerged, but it was fine. It was beautiful. And so I was like, I want to plant the herbs that the butterflies will lay their eggs on. There's specific types of
Mm.
herbs. So the swallowtail butterfly lays its eggs in dill and parsley. Like anyway, so I planted a bunch of dill. I don't even eat dill like that, but and I found 12 baby butterfly
Wow.
caterpillars on the dill yesterday. And so they're going to eat up all the dill and they're going to turn into a caterpillar. I don't know where they're all going to live. I feel like we might need some crowd control because the dill is not that big. But I can't wait to watch these little caterpillars become big caterpillars. I'm going to go check on them as soon as we wrap, get my lunch, and just it gives me so much peace watching these little caterpillars. And I said my butterfly mastermind is that I also am growing milkweed flowers, which
Mm.
are the only flowers I think monarch butterflies either eat or lay their eggs on, something to that effect.
Okay.
So and I'm going to be planting echinacea flowers, cone flowers, because this is
Okay.
what butterflies love to eat. So I
Okay.
want to create the perfect little butterfly ecosystem so I can just watch all the life stages of the butterfly. And I already feel better talking about it. Y'all might think I'm a little cuckoo,
No, I love it.
but if it's beautiful. So shout out Brown Boost for my gardening and my butterfly,
You know what it brings
my
me to
butterfly
mind? Like
project.
this is like a book that every preschooler needs if you don't have it by Eric Carle, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. That's like my
Yeah.
fave. And I was like, oh, and he's
It's
still
Rio's favorites
hungry.
too.
I love that
Yes.
book.
But that butterfly ate cupcakes and
I
plums
mean,
and
he
oranges
was
and
greedy.
stuff.
Let's be real.
Yeah,
That butterfly was OD.
he had a tummy ache.
But it was such a great book.
Yeah.
But I just remember it had me thinking about that when you said the caterpillar was like eating, like the
They're
dill.
so
That's
hungry.
awesome.
And gardeners hate them, but I love them. I think you just need to make peace with them. Just
Hmm.
I'm not going to eat all that dill anyway. It's fine.
We can share a little deal. What's a little deal
Yeah.
between friends?
What about you, my friend?
My brown boost is gonna be. I actually spoke with one of my friends this weekend, and she's been in business for a long time, about as long as me, and she called because she wanted to talk about like her cash flow. And like, she's
Mm,
like, oh, what should I do? Da, da. And I was like, I was listening to her and listening. And then I said, can I ask a question that's not necessarily related to this technical question you have for me? And she was like, yeah. I said, well, like, what actually do you want from your life? Like, what are you working toward? And she was like, oh, I want to grow $1 billion business. She's got this technology that can honestly potentially grow into $1 billion business because the government wants it. And I'm like, yeah, no, not that. But like, what do you want for you? Like, and she was like, I want something like how I had a few years ago when my business was a little smaller. I was making about $350,000 in business a year. And I was traveling all the time. And she was just like, I can just hear her light up when she was saying it. I said, so what about the life that you're currently pursuing is appealing? Because it sounds like you haven't taken a vacation in a while. She's like, I haven't. It sounds like,
mm.
you actually are making less, even though you're making more. For those of you who are in business, you know exactly what I mean. Like your business is making more, but it's costing you more. So you personally are making less. So it sounds like that's where you are. She said, yeah. And I was just like, oh, for what again? So you can have this $1 billion business. She was just like, well, here's the thing. I want to live the kind of luxury that that $1 billion business can afford. And I said, are you living that now? She said, no. I said, well, how long have you been in this holding pattern? It's been a couple of years. And I said, well, it sounds like your life was pretty great before. Because what if you take this next 10 years to indeed grow this $1 billion business, get there only to find out it's not as cute as you think, and you will have paid for that life with your life, you know? And she was just like,
Mm.
wow, you know, because I get it that there was a stage in entrepreneurship that I have seen over the last couple of years where it's growth by any means necessary. It's bigger, 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 more, 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 bigger, bigger, more, 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 especially in the Black and brown entrepreneur community, because for the first time, we have been able to break through. And like, you know, like I've never seen this type of wealth grown so quickly in this community through entrepreneurship. And so I myself definitely got caught up in it as well, because it was like, I remember distinctly one of my mentors, she meant well, told me that if you can get it, go get it. Meaning like, well, Tiffany, if you can do one, can you do 5 million? If you can do 5 million, can you do 10? If you can do 10, can you do 50? So it's like, well, girl, if it's out there to get it and you can get it, go get it. And so I subscribed to that because I thought, if it's possible, why not reach for the stars? Never really asking myself, but do I just like clouds? And so
Mm.
because of like losing Jarrell, it helped to like reset and to really ask myself, actually, how do you actually want your life to go? I know that I could grow a 50 to $100 million company. I know I can do that. We know that. But is that what you actually want? Are you not wearing your Target's vest every day? You know, like, are you still not driving your 2015 Lincoln MKZ that you bought used anyway and you love that car? Yes. Is your house, your mortgage not paid off and you actually love your little house? You know, yes. So what is, if I, you know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Like, if I were to get this $100 million business and sacrifice my life now, what's on the other side of that is it really a better life? Like, what is all that for, basically? So
Mm.
we really talked about that. And she was just like, wow. You know, one of the things that Jarrell taught me is the concept of enough, you know, and I'd never known that concept. I used to think the concept of enough meant that you were not ambitious. I was like, Jarrell ain't ambitious. And that you were
Settling.
settling. Yep. Because I was like, Jarrell, you don't want to do this and this and this. And he's like, no. I'm like,
Mm.
but babe, you can like, you know, you work for housing, you're super already. We can have like apartment buildings. And he was just like, I mean, maybe another house or two. That'd be cool. And I'm like, I remember it used to drive me crazy. Then finally I was like, that's just him. I'm out here doing it. Meanwhile, stressed, overworked. My blood pressure was raising.
I
I
mean,
went
to
to the
his
doctor.
benefit, though. You were doing it for his benefit, too.
Yeah, I was, you know, but I'm just thinking to myself, like, there was a moment where I actually had attained the goals I set forth and I zoomed past it, didn't even acknowledge. I was like, I want to have a house that's paid off. I don't want any debt. I want to pay off my student loan debts. I want to be able to vacation or at least have enough money to do so. I want to pay off my parents' house. So I had this goal. And when I tell you, I flew past it, barely nodded at it and kept going. So it's not that I regret the hard work, but it's like you did the thing that you wanted. And now you're still working as if you just started. And it was a law of diminishing returns where the work was actually bringing me less of what I intended, which is freedom and time. And so that's what I'm really, so I believe in hard work, but it's like that it should be tied to something versus just work for working's sake. And that's the zone that I had entered into, that I was just working for working's sake because we had the things we said we wanted to have. And so, yeah, so it was like, you know, it was just a really good chat with her. And I mentioned this book before, Stillness is the Key. But my favorite chapter is definitely the chapter called Enough. I probably listened to that 20 times just to remind myself, like, you know, what does it look like? But you have to self-identify. For some people, enough is, it's not really the money. Maybe for some people, enough is living a certain lifestyle that I'm not, you know, I don't subscribe to, but that's fine. So really, I had to learn to self-identify what is enough and do I have it? And if I do, I don't have to put, not that I don't work at all because I still do, but I don't have to work as if I'm still trying to achieve what I set forth anyway. And so I've never been more aligned. Like literally I was going through my calendar with Rose, my admin today. And I was like, girl, why do I have like 5 things today? No. Reschedule these 2. That can wait until the end of the month. And, like I was looking at all these little trips I have coming up. My sisters and I are all going to be going to Chicago to surprise my sister Karen. Hey, Karen, surprise.
Tell me she's
Um,
not a listener.
I don't even know if she's a listener, but I'm going to tell her this week anyway.
Probably not. She's probably
But
shady like all my family. They don't listen to anything I do.
but I'm supposed to like speak in Chicago, and old Tiffany would have been like, just go and come back. But I was like, I'm going to
Yeah.
Chicago. Why not invite all the sisters to come? And so we've all been to
Aw.
Chicago, but not all at the same time with the kids. So it's going to be like, we call the Alicia
Family
Sisters.
reunion.
I know. And so but
Mommy and Daddy aren't coming?
no, because my dad doesn't fly as much. Now that he's in his mid 80s, he doesn't fly as much. And I know if I ask my mom, she'll be like, yeah. And I'm like, well, who's going to watch Daddy? She's going to be like, oh, fine.
Aw.
So, I know. So instead, I'm going to see if I can send them later. I'm going to see if he wants to go. But my dad used to travel all the time, but now that he's mid 80s, he just doesn't like to travel as much. Maybe, you know what I'm going to see? Maybe I'll put him on a train, because you can do like one of those really comfortable, like first class, and trains are really comfortable. Maybe that will be like I'm going to see if that, because I know my sister would love to see him in Chicago. I mean, she's been here obviously a number of times,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've never been more aligned. I spend way more time with family and friends. I speak to my mentees all the time. I take daily walks. I nap. I'm financially stable. I have therapy. I've never been more aligned, but I've never worked less. Sometimes I do get a little anxious for not working, for not working as much, but I learned to calm myself down. Like, I have enough, and it feels really awesome. It doesn't mean that there's not growth, because growth is still happening, but, not as a result of my hyper productivity, which is not all that productive. And so I'm just learning, I think my brown boost is like the concept of enough and learning to lean into it.
I love that. Stillness is the key. Let's check that
Mm-hmm.
chapter on enough out. I love that too. And do you ever, even on your walk sometimes, I feel like I had been turning my walks into like, oh, be productive. Listen to this, listen to that. Or catch up on this that you missed, or listen to the news and whatnot. But I've tried to get back to just quiet and
Yes.
listening to the birds chirping and,
Yes.
my favorite walking ladies and kind of eavesdropping on their conversations and what's going on with their lives while I'm walking.
Or listening
just,
to
walking with a
music.
side of tea.
Yeah,
Or
I love that
music.
walk with a side of tea. I love that.
Walk with some tea. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me really quickly of Girl Trek. Did I tell you I ran into
Yes.
the co-founder of Vanessa?
Which
What is she?
one?
The founder?
Yes.
Her
Yeah, her
name's
and
Vanessa.
Morgan are the founders. Yeah.
So they won a Webby for their incredible podcast called, I forget what it's called, but it's 21 episode podcast series, because it's like 21 days walking challenge that they created. And she says hello.
I
It
love
was so
her.
funny because we were just talking about what we did, and she's like, wait, you have a podcast with who? It's like, Tiffany, the Vanessa people. Yeah, I'm like wearing the shirt anyway. And I know, and I know Girl Trek from you. And so if you
Yes,
guys
they're
haven't heard of
awesome.
Girl Trek, I mean, talk about a movement. They have gotten probably millions of Black women across the country walking
Mm-hmm.
again, getting in
Yes.
touch with that space and stillness and quiet and
Mm-hmm.
the walking. So if you haven't checked them out, we'll do a bonus boost for Girl
Yes.
Trek.
Girltrek.org, I believe, is their website. It's free. If you're a sister and you want to walk, you can meet up with other sisters. You can walk alone, but they create all these challenges to get you out moving. But secretly, she's like, their real mission is to solve for loneliness. And she was like, that, and Black women, it's like,
Yes.
if you can walk with someone or meet up with someone, it's like, oh, you're not alone. There are other women who are just like you, who'd love to meet you and hang out with you. So it's just an awesome,
Oh,
awesome, awesome organization.
I love them. Shout out to Vanessa if you're listening, and all Girl Trekkers.
You too, Morgan. Morgan's
All
like, what
right.
about me? You too, Morgan.
And Morgan. Okay, also Morgan. Well, this wasn't Brown Ambition with a side of chuckles today. We try to
Yeah.
bring you the chuckles when we can, but Brown Ambition has always been, I feel like, a space where we get to acknowledge the hard things too,
Mhm.
and visit them and feel a little bit stronger having visited
Yeah.
them. So thank you, friend.
No, thank you. And we'd love to hear from you guys. We have a Twitter, the BA podcast. So, right, tweet
We
us. You
do.
can message us
Instagram
on
at Brown
IG.
Ambition Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All the places. Just go to brownambitionpodcast.com and you can find all the things, all the
Yeah.
things. And we will see y'all next time.
Yes. Bye-bye.